Hi, everyone. This is our great podcast today, Hiking for Hope and Healing. This is mine and Dr. Keith McNally's podcast, where we help support at-risk veterans, talk about veterans benefits, and get to know those little tricks and tips on how to make veterans and active duty military members' lives better. I'm Jody Holton. I'm an old retired Army Signal Corps officer, paratrooper, AI extraordinaire, and I have one of my favorite people with us today. My old first sergeant, Sergeant Major now, Command Sergeant Major, paratrooper, great skills, and 100 other things. Who has been a success, and I have been, always wanted to have those great conversations with. Sergeant Major Jenn, am I pronouncing this right? McAuliffe?
McAuliffe.
McAuliffe. All right. Sergeant Major Jenn McAuliffe. Okay. And today, we really want to talk to you about how you not only have taken on the hardest jobs, intelligence, with paratroopers, overseas, marriage. You do ultra marathons, and you have become a super success, and you help out veterans in active duty. Can you tell us some of your secrets and some of your tips?
Well, sure, absolutely. I don't know that there's really any secrets, tips. Just do the best you can every day. I know it sounds very simple, but throughout my career, I'm an Army brat. My father was in for 20 years, and really that's what originated my idea or my desire to join the Army almost 30 years ago. And I've always asked my dad for guidance. He retired as a first sergeant. He was an air defense man himself. And when I joined, he was not very happy with me. He actually dropped the phone when I had called him and told him I had joined, and then picked the phone back up and asked me if I was effing stupid. Um, since then, he's very proud of my accomplishments, but I've always looked to him for guidance because he had a very successful career as well. And one of the things that he told me many, many years ago was if I could look myself in the mirror every night and knew that I had done the best that I could for my soldiers, then I was doing a good job. And I've kept that with me over the years. And it's one of the things, in all honesty, that I have on several occasions to look to myself in the mirror and ask myself, did I do the best that I could do for my soldiers today? And I have never not answered yes to that question. So that's one of the secrets, I guess, to my success. Um, my entire career in the military, it's never been about myself. It's always been about the mission and the soldiers. So no instant self gratification or anything like that. It's always been to ensure that the soldiers were getting the time they needed, the courses they needed, the equipment they needed, and then had the best leaders in charge of them as well.
I mean, you've taken on some of the hardest jobs in the Army. Could you talk about you've done first sergeant duties, sergeant major, first sergeant duties with intelligence operations. You've done airborne. I know you've been a sergeant major of the airborne units, right? You've done special operations things.
Yes.
Yes, I know. I know you're not allowed to talk about a lot of this. All right. Okay. Uh, and you've always been positive. How do you manage the time you've stayed physically fit? Sorry, I've got a million questions for you. Could you talk about like you got into a sergeant major job for one of the hardest units? Could you talk about how you prepared for that?
Well, I've been a sergeant major in a few units, so I'm not sure which one specifically that you're speaking about. But as far as first sergeant time, it was one of the positions that I wanted to actually serve in. Similar, like my father was a first sergeant when he retired, so really that is what I had aspired to be. That was like the pinnacle of my career, if you will, to achieve that rank in that position of first sergeant. And I was very humbled to be able to serve in three different first sergeant positions, and one of which, as you know, was out in Korea. Um, and I will always consider that the best duty station, best time I had as a first sergeant. There will always be a special place in my heart for Bravo 532. We had the best retention rates. We had the lowest incident rates of any unit there on Camp Humphreys. I think I got 2 phone calls for soldiers getting into some sort of trouble in the 2 years that I was in position. And I've maintained contact with a lot of those soldiers to this day. So a great experience. First sergeant and drill sergeant, that's what I've told people were the best positions thus far in my career. As far as sergeant major, yes, I was a sergeant major in the asymmetric warfare group. That was for a very short period of time, because then I was activated to be a command sergeant major for the Army GONs Battalion, which I honestly did not know that battalion existed until I was assigned to it. Successfully served there for 3 years, and then I had the opportunity to finally go to airborne school because
Yeah.
my husband was put on assignment to Fort Liberty, North Carolina. So I did. I reached out to Branch at almost 28 years time in service and told them that in order for me to stay in the Army, they had to send me to, at the time, Fort Bragg. And my branch manager told me that I'd have to go to airborne school, and I said, yeah. And they said, are you sure? I was like, yes, I want to go to airborne school. I've wanted to go to airborne school for 26 of my almost 28 years in service. So they were like, well, okay, yeah, we've got a position for you then. And so I got assignment instructions for Fort Bragg, like I said at the time, now Fort Liberty, North Carolina, and signed in and processed in a week and went to airborne school and graduated first time go, came back, and I served as the 18th Airborne Corps G2 Sergeant Major for almost 3 years. Another absolutely great experience. Humbled to have served there, and now I am ending my career as the Force Com G2 Sergeant Major, which most of my career I've spent in INSCOM and TRADOC assignments. The only 2 FORCE-COM assignments I had was Fort Campbell way back in the day, which I requested that assignment as well. And now here at Fort Liberty. So it's truly been an amazing ride and adventure. And I just told our G2 section the other day that this is the pinnacle now of my career, that I am getting to end in a FORCE-COM assignment, which is what, if there was one thing that I can change, I would have served in the majority of FORCE-COM units instead of the INSCOM side of the house. So it's been really amazing. I've been very fortunate. Um, yeah, other than being able to spend more time in force comm units, I wouldn't change a thing with my career.
But so me and Dr. McNally, we hike and we work out. Okay. Um, the units you're talking about, Sergeant Major. Okay. Now, Dr. McNally was a mortal man in the Marines. Okay. I was a Stigma Corps officer. I the jobs that you're talking about are highly stressful. They're extremely physical. Okay. I went to jump school uh in like my mid 30s. Okay. That was not easy. Okay. But Sergeant Major, Jenn, you still do marathons. You have a successful marriage. You know, you're not. I don't. I think luck's a little bit part of it with you, but your hard work, right? Can you talk about how like you have prepared for things? Did you prepare for airborne school? Did you prepare for the Sergeant Major's Academy? Is there like a formula that you do? 4 o'clock, fingertip push-ups, meditation.
So it's funny. I mean, I was very active as a kid, always outdoors, doing things. I didn't really spend much time in the house. I was one of those kids that my parents had to yell at me to come in from outside. Growing up in the Dakotas, there was a whole world out there for me to explore. So I was running around in cattle pastures, getting chased by cows, riding bike to the nearest Dairy Queen in the adjacent town that was like 10 miles away, which doesn't sound that bad, but when you're 10 years old, it's kind of a distance to do a 20-mile bike ride round trip. Um, so always been active, and when I finally decided to join the army, I actually had failed my first PT test, and from that day forward, I made a promise to myself. Not only was I never going to fail again, but I was going to max the PT test, which I did end up doing with the old APFT 3 events. Um,
I
Now,
miss
with
those
the
days.
changes of the ACFT, it's a little bit harder, not impossible. I am passing it. I have not failed an ACFT, fortunately, but it is hard work. And then through my different assignments, I had run into a friend about 10 years ago that had got me involved in Ragnar relay races, which is about usually somewhere around 200 miles that is completed with a team of 6 to 12 people over a 24-hour period. Um, so typically, our team was comprised of all active duty service members, and these runs always started on a Friday morning, which can be kind of difficult to get out of work for a duty day for military people. So we were usually short a few team members on the 12-man team. And that's where I started running the equivalent of an ultra marathon with all the legs that we had to do, because I was usually one of the people that did um, two or back to back legs because we were missing a person or two. So I would run the equivalent of 30 to 40 miles over a 24-hour period. From there, it was like, well, if we can do it, in different segments, let's do it all at once. And we had signed up for our first 50K ultra marathon, which about 31 miles. And then from there, I got into Tough Mudders and Spartan races, continued to run ultras. So it requires a lot of training. And there are soldiers and even former sergeant majors of mine that can attest to the work that I'd put in, that I'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, go work out, then go to formation, do PT with the soldiers. And then specifically in Korea, I had a great group of platoon sergeants that would make sure that I went to my CrossFit workout in the evening as well. So otherwise I'd get kind of cranky. Um, so I have put in a lot of hard work, and one of my favorite stories from a mentor of mine, retired sergeant major, we had a soldier in the unit get in trouble, um, and I got called, and I was actually doing a marathon at the time. So when I received the phone call from the sergeant, or from the soldiers section sergeant, I called our sergeant major, and of course I was huffing and puffing, and he asked me what in the world I was doing. I told him, well, I'm running a marathon, sergeant major. He just started laughing and told me that that was dedication, that I would call him to let him know of soldier issues literally while I was running a marathon. Um, but once again, like, yeah, hard work, dedication, care of soldiers. That's what really got me through any difficulties. It's just doing good for others. So the same thing for my marriage. My husband is active duty as well, and he is a sergeant major. He's a command sergeant major, and I usually refer to him as the better sergeant major. Um, but that's what we get enjoyment out of serving, um, the soldiers, taking care of the soldiers, serving our country, and then we just get to come together at the end of the day and decompress with each other, laugh at the stories that we've got throughout the day of either soldiers doing silly things like they do, or sometimes our peers and superiors doing rather silly things. And then he works out with me as well. I've actually got him signed up for his first ultra in a few weeks, so we'll see how he does.
So,
Hopefully, I don't kill him.
all right. Well, so I'm wearing my running shorts right now. You've motivated me. So Dr. McNally, do you have any questions? Because I've got a couple more.
Well, I was really intrigued by Jen's. She said earlier that her father, even after he said what he said, why did you join the army? He became a mentor to you in order to achieve, I think, some of the success that you did achieve. And you even mentioned the fact that if you were to achieve anything, you would achieve the same rank that he did. How important do you think success is when you have a mentor versus when you don't have a mentor? Because mentoring is such an important role, not only in business, but generally in life itself. So, can you talk to us about the value of having a mentor?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's hugely important. And not only in the aspect of having the mentor, um, but having someone that you don't want to disappoint. So for me, it was twofold. First of all, my father, being a service member, my maternal grandfather had also served, doing it for him. And then I had much younger siblings. So serving was being a good example for them to look up to as well. So for me, knowing that they were looking up to me, it was another incentive for me to work hard and not to fail. So absolutely, I think, and that goes back to me saying that I wasn't doing it for myself as much as trying to be a good mentor, to my siblings, even, and receiving that mentorship from my father, but in all aspects, not wanting to let my family down, not wanting to let soldiers down when I was put in charge of them, or my leadership for that matter. That I had the privilege of serving under some very, very great leaders. So I think for me personally, that was a big part of it as well.
So, so this is Suicide Prevention Month now in September. What do you think? So you've been a success in your career, and you've built some incredible teams. Right. What do you think regular soldiers, Marines, sailors, guardsmen can do to get past some of these suicide pratfalls we've been seeing come up? Because the numbers are pretty bad.
Yeah, I agree. And I think from my personal observations and thoughts is really about having that purpose. I think a lot of people come to a point or a place in their lives that for whatever reason, they just feel like they don't have a purpose anymore, or that they made a mistake and let somebody that they respected or that they were trying to be that good example for down, and therefore lost their purpose, um, or just don't want to continue living knowing that they might have disappointed someone, which to me that the suicide cases that I've seen and read reports on, anything you can overcome, or you can overcome those stumbles. There is nothing, or this is the message I would tell people. There is nothing that you can't overcome. It might seem overwhelming at the time or insurmountable, but it's a mistake. We're humans. We make mistake, and the best thing we can do as other humans on this planet is forgiveness. And generally speaking, I think the vast majority of the population falls into that forgiving category. Um, and then just knowing that there are other people out there that even though you made a mistake, they still look up to you, so you still have that purpose. Um, yeah.
You know, um, one of the things that I've gotten into, and Dr. McNally, so have you, is reaching out to other veterans. Okay, one of my fondest memories of you, Sergeant Major, is how you always built up teams. Okay, like even you talk about like your husband. Oh, I went to job school. He was a paratrooper, right? You always went to the party. Um, when you build teams, you know how how have you gone about that? You have gone into some amazing teams, and it has not been easy for you. Can you talk about that? I mean, you broke a lot of barriers.
I would say it's because I generally or genuinely do have a very positive outlook on life. One specific story that I always recall is our deployment when I was stationed at Fort Campbell with the 101st, and we deployed to Iraq back in 2003. Um, I've loved Snoopy my entire life. And I have a Snoopy tattoo on my ankle doing the Snoopy dance. And that is one of the things that I would always run around anytime something really cool happened. I would do the little Snoopy dance, and it would just crack people up. And one of the platoon sergeants in our company while we were deployed, that like absolutely made his day. And I mean, he's just one person I know about, just because I would do the Snoopy dance over the simplest little thing. Like I got a packet of salt for my whatever we were eating at the time, or, or I saw a butterfly, or just something silly, or got a cold soda, running water, because we used bottled water for a very long time during our deployment. So just that first incident of running water, I was doing the Snoopy dance. So I think that's one of the things that helps me and actually assist people in gravitating towards me, because I really do have just a happy, positive outlook in life. And don't get me wrong, I have had bad Army days. Um, and I have been the person in need of that hand, or the talk, or the pat on the back, because not every day is a great day. So I have had a couple of bad Army days, but it's never been to the point that I didn't feel like I still had a purpose, and there were people out there that were counting on me or needed me, or in just some way, shape, or form that I could benefit, or bring a smile to their face if they were having a bad day. So I think that's what got me through it. Is I feel that we're all connected, um, in a way, and the more we can do to help others, that's what helps me and keeps me going.
Dr. McNally, any questions?
Well, I was really excited to know how you talked about teams, being a part of a team, leading teams. When people get together in order to accomplish a task, a mission, or even somebody's vision, they have this sense that there is this collective purpose. And when we leave the service, regardless of a branch, we lose that feeling of connectedness, like you just said. We lose that whole idea of identity or value or mission or vision. One of the things that Trail to Transformation, this podcast, is all about is helping veterans realign with something that's important to them. So, as we close this conversation, can you really speak directly to that? When you, because I think you've served what, 28 years, you're about to leave, right? The Army. So you have to find this thing that says, I still have value, I still have purpose, and I've got the people around me to kind of keep my head on straight, support me in things that I'm going to do. So can you talk to that as a last point for this conversation?
Absolutely, Dr. McNally, and thank you for reminding me of that, because that was one of the things that I definitely wanted to impart on people, is especially transitioning from the military, that I think a lot of people let their military service define them, that's all they have. They identify as sergeant, officer, soldier, marine, airman, whatever it is, especially when they've been in for 20 years or more. So then when they transition, that's the only thing they know. That's their identity. So my recommendation, and an area that I'm very blessed in, this goes back to my passion for fitness, is I've been involved with a group, or a nonprofit organization, Team Red, White, and Blue. So through fitness, that's me. I'm not letting the Army define me. I am not Sergeant Major McAuliffe. I'm Jenn. So I know when I transition from the military, I'm going to just be Jenn. I will have served 30 years for my country and had a great time doing it, and met wonderful people. but my focus is going to be on fitness and continuing to assist people and veterans really through Team Red, White, and Blue. That that this organization is really there to offer assistance for veterans, for active duty, even for civilians, and still providing that sense of community for people through social and physical activity. So it's not just people going out and running. There are coffees, there are trivia nights, so that way service members don't lose that connectivity and they're still doing something. And whether it's with other service members that have gotten out or are still active duty, or even civilians in their community, they still have a place that they can feel connected.
Well, I tell you what, Jody and I plan on hiking the AT. We need some of that support. We absolutely do. Joe, do you want to close us out?
Um, Sergeant Major Jenn, thank you so much for talking to us today. And for I can't tell you how much you motivated me when I worked with you in South Korea, and how we've still stayed in touch. Thank you for being not only that awesome leader, but but that that regular person who cared about, all soldiers. I can't express that how deeply, you have helped people out. Thank you so much. Dr.
Well,
McNally, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you in conversation. Jody, great. Jenn, thank you so much. This has been another edition of Trail to Transformation. We'll see you next time. Take care.